We help basically deal makers push the deal forward by being more attuned, more aware of the subtleties that are mostly nonverbal. For example, how your voice sounds, how your body is seen, your hand gestures, your micro expressions, even stuff in email that are not very trivial. For example, your response time, okay? The relative length of your email versus the other person's.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Meet Ori Manor Zuckerman, co-founder and CEO of SubStrata. Meet Ori, a serial entrepreneur born and raised in Israel. He served in the Special Naval Intelligence Unit in the IDF and founded several companies, including Valueshine Ventures, DiscoverCloud, Dadaviz, acquired by Vocativ, and Unomy, acquired by WeWork. Today, he's leading SubStrata, a non-verbal communication AI startup that helps deal makers get a unique advantage in complex deals through innovative social signal processing technology. Ori Manor Zuckerman, thank you so much for joining me on 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for joining me today. I'm excited to talk to you about your own life journey. You have a fascinating journey as a serial entrepreneur, having gone through quite a variety of different fields and occupations. So I'm excited to pick your brain on those pieces, and then leading towards the current company that you're running, SubStrata, talking a little bit about deal making, about negotiations, and what does it mean to actually close a sale, and not just from an intuitive perspective, but a little bit more hands-on with how can we actually become better at it through deep technology. And so, Ori, tell me a little bit about yourself and different milestones in your journey that led you towards SubStrata.
Okay, so wow, it's a big question. Just in bullet points, I'm 40. I'm married with a baby. I live in Tel Aviv. I served in a Naval Intelligence unit in the IDF. I founded a couple of companies, including T-Rex, a gamification company, DiscoverCloud, a B2B SaaS marketplace, Dadaviz, that was acquired by Vocativ, Unomy, that was acquired by WeWork, and today, obviously, as you said, I'm leading SubStrata. I think my life went through deal making. Initially, I was extremely shy. I never liked to sell, and I was even afraid to buy. I remember when I was a kid, and my father we were on the beach, and me and my sister were like toddlers. So my father gave us some money, go buy ourselves some popsicles or something. I was actually afraid to go ahead and buy something because I was afraid that if I'm going to take the product and not give enough money, then I'm going to be a thief. So I was really against this thing, and I was against deal making until I was 20 plus. But then when I started entrepreneurship, it occurred to me that this is not going to go away. So I might as well embrace it and really learn how to do it. And I mean, throughout my career, whatever I've done, deal making was a big part of it.
I love it. And so tell me just a little bit about the initial journeys as an entrepreneur, and maybe a few of the things that have shaped you as a leader that then you're taking with you into the different startups that you ventured into.
So when I was released from the IDF, I worked for a while as a fitness instructor in Homes Place here in Israel.
Wow, that's so cool.
Roughly around 2004, 2005, e-commerce really started booming. So I got into affiliate marketing, and I really excelled. I was actually in ClickBank and CJ, Commission Junction, were the biggest affiliate marketplaces back then. I was one of the top 50 in the world. Without knowing code, I was a student in Ben Gurion University, and that was my hobby and job. I built funnels.
Wow.
Sites. I even wrote a book. I didn't really write it myself. I had a provider that did that to me, but that really taught me how to build a business from scratch. It was a small business, but it taught me how to buy media and funnel traffic into an online product, do the upsells, do the cross-selling, expand it, and on and on and on. Eventually, I sold more than 40,000 copies of that first book that I produced. I don't even say I write it because it's not. I don't deserve that title. And that led me into entrepreneurship, which I then started first with Valueshine, more of a project-based company, then with T-Rex, the gamification company for online gambling companies, DiscoverCloud, a B2B SaaS marketplace, and eventually Unomy, which was a sales intelligence platform. We served hundreds of clients, and eventually we got acquired by WeWork, as I mentioned before.
Incredible. Okay, and so I want to understand a little bit how you got to this idea of value making in deals and negotiations through technology. What were the different pieces that led there?
So shortly after Valueshine, I started more businesses, including Vocativ, a media company, T-Rex, a gamification company for the gaming industry, not to say the online gambling industry, essentially, and DiscoverCloud, a B2B SaaS marketplace, and then Unomy. And your question relates to Unomy. Unomy was my previous startup. I founded it together with Tzvi. And what we did essentially is we developed a platform that helped sales teams get more market insights and market intelligence on potential clients, on prospects. So we basically harbored data about hundreds of thousands of different companies and millions of people, so that SDRs and AEs were able to discover more stuff about not just the people they're about to talk to, but also about their companies, org charts, phone numbers, funding rounds, everything you can imagine, even technology that the company is using. That company was acquired by WeWork in 2017. And there I found myself, managing growth projects of various kinds. But the thing about Unomy was that it was about sales, and we worked with a lot of sales teams. So I got very familiar with the challenges of salespeople and deal making. Not just the stuff that we've done, and we had a lot of big clients, but also the stuff that our clients were doing. So I got a lot of accumulated experience in the area of deal making and sales.
So before we dive into SubStrata, tell me a little bit about the world of deal making and sales from your perspective, and what were some of the things that you learned that aren't so trivial, to the average, entrepreneur or learner?
Yeah. So what I discovered is that there's a lot of implicit stuff going on. So it's not just about having a great product, which is important, a competitive product. It's not just about the information that you relay to the other end. It's also about the more subtle stuff. It's about the nuances. It's about the dynamics between the seller, so to speak, and the buyer, or the AE and the prospect. Not just, it's throughout the process. It's the SDR and then the AE, and then whoever the lead is being handed off to. And the implicit stuff, at least in my experience, are the ones who make the difference. They can make or break the deal. And I think SubStrata, in a way, is my way of downloading what I know, but in the context of a deep learning methodology, and making it accessible to a lot of other people, way better than I could ever do it, of course, and way more accurate. But that's where it stemmed from, essentially.
Incredible. Tell me a little bit about SubStrata.
So in SubStrata, we're using deep tech to analyze the power dynamics between the two sides of a deal, the buyer and the seller. It could be right for investment bankers. It could be proper for VCs who are trying to raise from LPs. It can be good for B2B salespeople. Whoever deals with high-end, complex transactions, there's a lot of ego involved, a lot of power games, a lot of social dynamics. This is where SubStrata shines. And what we do essentially is we analyze it, especially in the nonverbal areas, so that we can find nonverbal social signals that are discrete, implicit, mostly covert, but they can make or break the deal. And we use that to increase the awareness of our user, which is mostly the seller. So we help basically deal makers push the deal forward by being more attuned, more aware of the subtleties that are mostly nonverbal. For example, how your voice sounds, how your body
Interesting.
is seen, your hand gestures, your micro expressions, even stuff in email that are not very trivial. For example, your response time. Okay, the relative length of your email versus the other person's length of email. If you are writing your name with a lowercase or uppercase, I know the grammatically correct way is uppercase, but maybe the first letter, but maybe there's a certain signal that you send out when you're actually using lowercase.
Interesting. Wow. I want to stop you there because this is obviously something that, I get to partake in myself, especially in the world of venture capital. And I honestly never stopped to think that maybe am I actually, acting in the right way, not just in the way that I was taught in 7th grade of how to write emails, but maybe I need to rethink about the way that I'm presenting myself in the communication sphere. Now, the real question that I have here is that how do we know where is the source of truth? How do we know what is the right way to act? Because obviously it's going to be different for every person. It's going to be different according to the person that I'm going to be speaking to, right?
Well, not necessarily, but our source of truth is the truth. So we're locating where the truth is, and there are a series of truths that we need to relate to. The obvious one is whether the transaction was successful or not. So basically, we can reconnect to the CRM and see historically whether the deal was closed won or closed lost, and that's one source of truth. But we also take smaller steps in that direction. For example, before you're cooking a deal, before you even get to the first Zoom meeting or face-to-face meeting, there's a bunch of emails going on, whether it was inbound, outbound, or an introduction, and we can see where there's a certain decay. For example, if there's a decay, it means that the email efforts did not succeed. If there's a continued engagement, it means that something is being done properly. So we have all sorts of in deep learning, we call it error loss values that we can relate to.
The way that then you're able to analyze it means that you need to be a part of this process. You need to be a very intimate part of the negotiation and deal making process, so that once you have the signal of whether the deal was made or not, you can then go back and trace and fine tune those errors.
When you say you mean us as SubStrata or the you?
Yeah. SubStrata, yeah.
SubStrata is a real-time tool that also gives you aftermath analysis. So yeah, it is part of the interaction. So it follows you when you're sending emails, if you want it to, of course. It works alongside you when you are doing, a Zoom session or whatever other conference tool you're using. And it connects to your CRM. So it basically escorts you throughout the process from the first email to the conversion point and post-conversion.
How do investors, salespeople, how do they react to this idea that they're going to have this tool that is going to be with them, in real time, giving them feedback when, a lot of it is based on relationships, based on intuition? What is sort of how are people receptive to what's happening here?
It's a big step for a person who never heard about it. And this requires us to do some market education, because I think there's a lot of mystery sort of or BS mystery in sales, that people think that if you do X, this Y will happen. And I think most people don't really recognize what's going on underneath, what's really going on when it comes to the power dynamics. Some kind of understand it, but they put it aside. They don't really want to confront it, because sometimes you're losing. Sometimes it's not a good experience. We look at it in the eyes, so to speak, and we're confronting it. And I don't know if it's a leap, but it's at least half a leap to really fully recognize what we're doing. It's not trivial.
What does this actually mean to the world of sales? That, if now we're negotiating and a big part of it is the relationship form of it, how does this change the dynamic of the way that I am acting in the negotiation phase? If now perhaps some of my words, some of my punctuation, some of my demeanor is altered by somebody else giving me this advice?
Yeah, so it depends on who you are. So if you're a very savvy deal maker and you're intuitively attuned to these aspects, it's not a big change. It is a critical change because sometimes when you lose your mojo, it can help you, stay in the zone. But you can really, slip into it very easily, and it's going to be very helpful and useful as a correcting tool, like an invisible aid. For the less savvy deal makers, it's like total game changer because it suddenly makes them fully aware of all the errors that they're doing, of all the stuff that they're not even thinking about.
I love it because I'm guessing that there's so much low-hanging fruit that people don't even have that person that sits and on a fly on the wall to give them these little tips and advices, not even things that change their personality, but things that maybe they don't know about, the culture of the other person, or not really cognizant of the way they're responding to the way we're talking, a lot of these things, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
I love it. Where does your, vision lie with this? So if you're looking at, today's real-time software with SubStrata, and you're looking more broadly about this world of deal-making negotiations, a lot of the social interaction behind closing sales, what is sort of the grand vision here?
My grand vision is not to be focusing solely on sales. I think this can be extremely helpful for HR, for example, because of post-COVID, we have more and more remote interviews.
Right.
And I think this can be fantastic for both sides, by the way, for the interviewer or for the interviewee. It can be also, good for the defense industry, but we're not really going that way, at least not at the present, because we really don't want to politicize the company or do anything of that sort. But some people say, and I heard that so many times, that it might be effective for dating. And to some extent, I agree. It can. I'm not sure we're going to go there.
Interesting. Wow, interesting. And I'm guessing that that's applicable both to those to the real world and the the physical world and the virtual world. With the devices always on us, they can always give us some indication. What's really inspiring you about your day to day? So one of the things that I'm always curious about, especially with people that have such an incredible journey like yours and have done different things. Every day you choose to wake up and to lead SubStrata. So why do you do what you do?
I think there's something really bold about this. And sometimes it's deterring. Sometimes it actually eats you up because the challenge, the technical challenge, is extremely hard, excruciating, but it's also extremely exciting. And there's a good feeling in the air that we've kind of cracked a secret code, and that we were able to really take a tiny peek into the truth, and then to make that accessible to others and make it accurate and reliable. That's a big challenge. And I think, it's also, when you talk about nonverbal communication, it's a second language that everybody speaks, but most are not aware of. Think about the fact that how only very good politicians are fluent speakers of that language, and in a way we're kind of commoditizing it so that more people can enjoy the advantages of being more fluent in nonverbal, not just making it the advantage of the precious few.
I love it. And if you're looking at just some traditional things that I or some of my friends in the space should be looking for, as you've now spent some good amount of time thinking about this space, what are some things that we should be keeping in mind as we approach negotiations, deal making, from your perspective?
Are you looking for like easy tips or something?
Not easy tips, but maybe questions that are non-trivial that we should be asking ourselves that we may not even know to ask. Just like this idea of punctuation, I never thought of asking myself, am I using the right form of punctuation in my communication?
Or lack of punctuation.
Or lack of.
So I think, a good question would be, I guess, who do I need to be in order for the other person to trust me or look up to me and buy what I'm saying?
Interesting.
That would be a good question to ask.
So in other words, understanding the stakeholders, where they're coming from and what they may value and what kind of persona they might be more comfortable working with in this specific scenario, which is not necessarily the one that you're usually portraying.
Yes, but it's not necessarily about changing our character. It's more about changing our position or perceived position in the interaction.
Right.
And putting ourselves in the other person's shoes, obviously. And if you do that, it's really going to help, I think.
I love it because you're actually saying it's not just about changing it's not about being a different person. It's perhaps being the same person, but channeling a different type of energy, different information that is still you, but within an hour-long sales conversation, you can't possibly show all your sides, and so it's important to pick and choose the ones that are more critical.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Now, if you go back a little bit in time, what really fascinated you as a kid?
As a kid, I was a very typical kid. I was extremely fascinated with wars and fights and conflicts. I always had like groups, and there were always fighting. And I would go back home, and my mom would ask, "Did you win this one?" And for Mom, I always won, although the truth was not as consistent. I think what I learned as I grew up, that the interesting conflicts are not physical, are actually they're implicit, they're covert, and they are conflicts. Nonetheless, sometimes they're way more fierce than the physical ones.
I love it. What are a few words that you would choose to describe yourself?
3 words. Okay, so perhaps stubbornness would be something that most people that know me would agree. I would love to say persistent, but I don't want to sound, I don't want to compliment myself too much. I'm pretty stubborn when I decide on something. It's really hard to move me. Doesn't mean that I don't listen. I actually listen, but when I'm really fixed on an idea, I'm extremely stubborn. Cognizance. I think you mentioned that word before, so it just popped out. I'm extremely cognizant about the stuff that are. When you say someone, you either got it or you don't. So I'm in my head. It's like, no, we can break it down. It's not that mysterious. So I really like to imagine how those mystical processes can be broken down into features and stuff. What is it made out of? And I mean, I don't want to say about myself, but I guess the last word would be heart, because I am a people's person. I'm not that kind of fierce, cruel CEO that I would that I need to be. I have a bigger heart, for better or for worse.
Ori, thank you very, very much. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate the time and best of luck with SubStrata. I look forward to checking out myself and thank you for everything. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much.